And I remember sitting there and just looking at the door and thinking, oh, wow, I want to be with my mom. So I think it was my idea, but the two of us got up, ran down, out the door, down the stairs. We're running down the street.
A very new episode of Candid Conversations, and I have very special guests joining me today. We have the Carr family, Joyce and Greg. Hi, Joyce and Greg.
Hi.
And we have the Keller family with Enzo, Krista, and Danny. Welcome, everyone. This is nice to see a whole family together.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
You are very welcome, but please tell me, how has it been with the shelter in place for all of you? Obviously, you're in two different households. How has the communication been?
Well, FaceTime, telephone, and then going up to their home, and they have a big window in their living room, and we visit through the window and play through the window.
How about you, Greg?
I tag along once in a while.
Do you do the same thing, or do you just go there and just chat from outside the window?
Yeah, I have a shorter attention span than Joyce, and so I go up and I do my thing and say hi, and then I, take off.
So you feel the shelter in place has improved your communication skills since you get it done and you're back to doing whatever you enjoy doing?
Are you talking about me?
Yes.
I'm not the judge of how my communication skills have improved or deproved.
Well, then we lost the Keller family. They'll tell us. How do you think Greg's communication skills have been when you have been sheltering in place?
Can we plead the fifth?
Oh boy, you're setting me up.
Well, let's hear it.
In terms of communication
How
skills.
does, yeah,
Like, what does that mean?
like talking to you, spending time with you.
What do you think? Oh,
That's a very honest answer. So
not
Greg,
very good.
that's as best.
Thank you, Enzo.
I was looking for the thumb going down, but it was there. So perfect. So tell us, Enzo, let's start with you. What has been the most enjoyable thing to stay at home, and what has been one of the most difficult things for you?
Well, the difficult thing is, well,
what's the hardest thing about having to stay home all the time?
COVID.
I guess you didn't have any difficulties. It was all easy for you.
I did not.
That's what I'm thinking.
Playing with my friend, that's one.
That's one. Can you tell us what some of the things you've been doing inside the house? How you've been staying busy?
Well, I think it was yesterday, but I built this big castle on the table out of magnet tiles.
And that kept you busy. That's a good thing. So your grandma was a baby too at one time. Have you seen pictures of her?
No need.
No.
You haven't. Oh, you have. But she was a baby at one point. And do you want to hear what she did when she was a baby?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear from her. Joyce, please tell us, enlighten us how you were as a baby. Tell us about your childhood.
Okay, well.
Hey, before Joyce gets started, I've already had my chance to do this. This isn't about me, and I'm get tired of seeing my faces. What I'm going to do is leave and put the spotlight on Joyce where it should be, and I say goodbye to you and everybody else.
Thank you. It was a nice get together for the family.
Move
through
Joyce
Census.
around.
Thank you.
And you
Now it's their Hollywood, and have a good time.
Bye-bye. So Joyce, take us back to your childhood. You had a very special childhood. So tell us about it.
I did. I had a very, very happy childhood. I was born in 1948, 3 minutes after my identical twin sister, Janet.
I have like a picture of it on our stairs of Nonia and Noni as babies, as great Nana holding you two.
Right.
See, that's what she's going to tell us now, what they did. So
Yeah,
let's
Enzo
hear
calls
from her.
me Noni, and he calls my sister Nonia. And so anyway, we were born in Oakland and raised in a fun neighborhood. We had a lot of friends that we played with. And in those days, you know, the kids all went out on the street and rode bikes and did all these fun things, and the parents didn't have to worry as much. My mother said she was always looking out the kitchen window to make sure we were okay. But, I had wonderful parents. My mom was the youngest of 6 children, and kind of interesting because the age difference between she and her other brothers and sisters was great. I mean, the next one after my mother, one older, was 8 years older than my mother, and the other one was 20. So my mother had brothers and sisters that ranged between 8 and 20 years older than her.
And how was the overall growing up experience? I mean, you are seeing your grandson growing up. Obviously, the comparison keeps coming up. What are 1 or 2 fun things that you did at that time that you feel today's kids are missing out on?
Well, that's what I think. I think the freedom just to go out and play on the street. And then when we got a little bit older, we'd walk to the shopping center, just the Janet and I, and be able to, you know, go to stores and things that kids don't do as much today. But we also played, you know, we played inside a lot. And we had a friend that we met when we were 18 months old, who's I still talk to every Sunday. She lives in Chicago. And so we just had fun, and our families, both my mother's family and my dad's family, all lived in the Oakland area. So spent a lot of time with cousins and aunts and uncles.
So between you and your twin, who got into more trouble? Or did you get into trouble together?
Well, sometimes we got in trouble together, like, but actually we were really, I mean, I'm just saying this from what my mom says, we were really very well behaved. My sister was a little bit more bossy than me, and and still to this day, she is more firm with me and talking to me than I would be with her.
I'm going to have to move to Danny. He nodded his head when you said she is a little bossy. So I'm going to get a little input from Krista and Danny on that statement. Why did you nod, Danny?
You know, I've only been around for 11 years, so I don't have all of the information. I'll let Krista manage that one, or Enzo, because he has an opinion on it too.
Well, let's hear. Which
true.
sister is more out there and gregarious, and which one is quieter, do you think, Krista or Enzo, or both?
Well, things have changed through the years, but all I'd say is that my aunt was the first baby out, the bigger baby, ate my mom's food in the womb, tells her what to do, has always done it, and they get along great. It's just their dynamic.
It's a lot of fun. But I mean,
my mom's more passive.
But you asked if we got in trouble, and yeah, we did. There's 2 things that come to mind. One is that one day my mother went outside on the front porch of our house, and we, you know, back in those days, people had screen doors, and for some reason, and my mother does not know why, because it wasn't like us, we locked the screen door and closed the front door, and we wouldn't let her in. Now, I don't know why, because this was not our personality. And so my mother had to go next door to the neighbor, and they called the fire department. Oh, I guess she called the police department or something and said she couldn't get in the house, but she said, please don't have the sirens and everything. So of course they came with the sirens.
They did come with the sirens.
Yeah.
Do you think in today's times an incident like that would amount to something way more than what it was?
Yeah, probably so. And I don't know why we would even do that, because we were extremely attached to my mom and my dad, and we weren't ones to play tricks or jokes. And the one other thing that we did that my mother was always very clean, proper, whatever. And she was on the phone one day and she thought, oh, just the house sounds kind of quiet. And so she, you know, whoever she was talking to, she said, hold on just a minute, the house seems quiet. And she found my sister and I in the bathroom, and we were washing our hair in the toilet. And so
Continue. What happened after that?
you know what? I don't remember. Oh, well, yeah, I remember what happened. My mother being so clean. Yeah, she took us and washed our hair. But I don't remember doing either one of those things. But we were very well mannered, pretty shy. I'm much more outgoing now, but kind of shy as a child.
How about now? I'm going to see what Enzo is like in his childhood. Krista and Danny, do you think he has any of these traits that Joyce talked about?
Well, he knows better than to wash his hair in the toilet, or his mother's head would pop off of her neck. I'm a germaphobe like my grandmother, so I don't know how she handled that. I got that one.
So no head washing in the toilet for Enzo. That hasn't happened.
He's never locked me out of the house. I have locked myself out of the house.
Yeah.
With him in the house, that was awesome. But no, he's never done that. But he does have the gift of gab, like my mother.
And that's a wonderful gift to have. That's the way you connect with every human being that you come across. So Joyce, let's go back to your first day of school. You mentioned it was very traumatic for you.
Oh yeah, that's another thing.
Was it because you were leaving the home for the first time, or something else happened?
Yeah, well, growing up, my mother's mother, she had, you know, the children that were all 8 to 20 years older than my mom. She was older, and she also, she was busy with everybody, helping all of her kids and grandchildren and whatever. So she didn't babysit us that much, but my grandmother did, my dad's mother. She babysat my sister and I all the time, and made any of the pictures that you see, she made all of our clothes and whatever. She was wonderful. So we were used to, if my mother went somewhere, my mom and dad went anywhere, she babysat us. And so when it got time to go to kindergarten, I remember my mother saying, because, you know, kids didn't go to preschool in those days and whatever, we would drive by the school. And as you drove by the school, you looked to the right, and that was the kindergarten room. And she would say, girls, that's where you're going to be going to school. You're going to go to school. You're going to be in kindergarten. You're going to have so much fun. And I remember driving by there all the time. Well, the first day of school came, and my mother took us, and she's got one in each hand, and all the kids are gathering and the parents, and the teacher comes out, and Mrs. Post, I still remember her name, she comes out and says, all right, well, children, it's time now for you to all come in, and moms and dads to leave. And I can remember thinking, what? Oh, you mean my mother's not staying? And so my sister had to say my dad. So we're holding on to my mom's hands, one in each hand. And we said we weren't gonna go in. So they got these Mrs. Post, and they got Mrs. Green. She was a first grade teacher, to take each of us, put us in the kindergarten room. And I remember sitting there and just looking at the door and thinking, oh, wow, I want to be with my mom. So I think it was my idea, but the two of us got up, ran down out the door, down the stairs. We're running down the street to get our mom.
Go back. And your story sounds very similar to my first day in kindergarten, where I actually pinched the teacher that she is not supposed to tell me not to follow my mom back home. So I can completely relate to that. I'm going to go straight back to Enzo, his first day of kindergarten. has not yet been a part of his existence as we know it. And but we still want to hear about Enzo's childhood, and we're doing a parallel comparison. Was there any fun memory that stands out as he was growing up when he was younger?
From our perspective?
Yes.
Well, like every
Anything
memory.
like this, similar to this, any story that comes to mind?
Like, he's the most fun person I've ever known in my life. So everything with him is just fun.
So
And
we'll have to come back and have you and Danny talk about some specific ones that you think stand out way more than the others. That's always a good thing, that he's brought so much laughter and joy. Joyce, so your schooling goes on. You adjust to school life. I'm assuming you're not running home.
This happened the second day.
Okay.
And then the third day, my mother's crying both days. She feels so bad. And the third day, she looked at my dad. You know, he's 6'2" in his, you know, shirt, suit, tie, you know, and said, "Bob, you're gonna have to take him. I can't do this again." So my dad took us, one in each hand, walked us up to the door, said, "Have a nice day, girls." We said, "Okay, bye." That was it.
So after that, you weren't running after your mom?
Oh, no.
You were done. Okay,
I
that's good.
school.
So you settle into school, make friends. What was the most exciting thing? What was your favorite subject in school? Anything regarding school that stands out?
Regarding school, well, you know, I just loved being in school, and my sister and I had made so many friends of whom we still are in contact with today because we're still in the area. I loved reading. I remember loving going to the library. I loved recess. I was really good at kickball. I remember that. And yeah, just it had a very fun elementary.
Tell us about the story with the campfire girl. What is that about?
Oh, campfire girls are like Girl Scouts. I
Okay.
don't know if you've ever heard of campfire girls.
We know
You don't-
about that, but
Yeah.
I want you to share with us how it was. Is it different from how it is today? Was it set up differently?
You know, I don't know how it is set up today. Now I'm a retired elementary school teacher, but there wasn't campfire at my school. So I absolutely have no idea, but we just got together and did different activities, and our leader happened to be the grandmother of one of the girls in the group, and my mother was the assistant leader, and the leader was very creative, and we made different things. We were always really busy. We sold mints, campfire mints. Instead of cookies, you sold mints. Oh, and we were nervous about going and selling mints. So there were these friends that lived up the street, the Dudleys, and my mother always called Claire ahead of time and said, "The girls are going to be selling mints. So when they come, you know, make sure you buy a box," because then once we sold to her, then we got into it a little bit more.
Why were you nervous? Was it the fear that you won't be able to sell the cookies?
Yeah, or the mints. They were mints. And so I was a little shy about it, you know, ringing somebody's doorbell and everything. Back when my sister and I were growing up, twins and everything, there were not that many twins. Now, my experience with my teaching, one of the last, well, not too many years ago, my third grade class, I had 5 students that had a twin. Because now twins are more common, but they weren't in those days. I mean, my sister and I were the only ones in the whole school. And we were always in the same class, which they don't like to do now because they don't want one twin protecting the other one or talking for the other one. They want them to grow up and be on their own to take care of themselves. But in those days, that's the way it was. So my mother would get phone calls from us for pictures like the newspaper. And so there's a picture that I sent to you of my sister and I on the first day of first grade, walking up the steps to the school. And it was on the front page of the Oakland Tribune, you know, first day of school, it shows us. But Hugh O'Brien, who played Wyatt Earp, he was coming to town, and the Campfire Association wanted a picture of him with campfire girls. So my mother got the phone call and we went to the Oakland airport, and there's a picture of us, and I'm handing him a mint. My sister's standing there, and we met Hugh O'Brien. Yeah, so.
Pretty cool. So tell me one thing. It's everything with your twin sister. Do you feel it was good to have a twin sister and not be triplets or quadruplets? Would that have been too much? Probably a little bit too much to meet.
That would have been a lot. I mean, we had triplets when I taught at Bollinger, and I had one of the triplets, and the mom, yeah, it was just, the whole thing was pretty difficult, but being.
So you were happy being a twin.
Yes.
You enjoyed, and the feeling of meeting a celebrity is always different.
Yeah.
Was that a big deal for you?
Yeah, because he was very popular on the TV and everything. Yeah, so yeah, also met Walt Disney. That's years ahead, but that wasn't because we were twins.
Well, let's talk about your, as you move from your teen years, you're heading to college. So you
Yes.
attended UC Berkeley.
Yes.
And tell us about that experience. How was it going? And I'm assuming you're still living in Oakland at this point?
Exactly.
Okay.
And we had a cousin, my sister and I had a cousin who was 10 years older than us. And she was almost like a sister to us. Her mom and my dad were cousins, and they lived in Orinda. And we spent a lot of time with them. And when they traveled, we watched their house, and because they had a big house. And so I was really close to her. And so 10 years older than us, but she was going to go to Berkeley. So when she went to Berkeley and joined a sorority, my sister and I looked at each other and said, yep, we're going to Berkeley and we're going to join a sorority. So we studied hard. And
What was your major in?
mine was US history.
And your sister?
Hers was Spanish.
Who got the best grades in school and in college?
All right, this is very interesting. I'm going to tell you this story. Oh, about being a twin. There were some very good advantages. I had twins in my classroom, like I told you, and sometimes I had the twin who didn't get as good a grades as the other twin. And I always explained to that child that I was the one that didn't get as good a grades as my sister going through elementary school. Because we all can't be at the same place at the same time. Oh, I used to tell my children, if I lined you all up on this wall and told you run as fast as you can to that wall, are you all going to get there at the same time? And they'd say, nope. And I'd say, it's the same thing with school. We all get it at a different time. And then I would explain to them that as a twin, my sister was always ahead of me. But I caught up in 6th grade and said, and look, here I am today, I'm a teacher. So,
and it's always a fun thing to experience life from the lens of a twin. So we're getting a nice perspective of how it was for you.
and one more thing to add to that, the playground. When I was a child, I loved recess and was out there playing, and my sister and I had a lot of friends, but we didn't like stick next to each other all the time. And when I started teaching and I would see a child by himself or herself, and they would come over and they'd want to talk with me. Most of the teachers said, you know, this is recess time, you need to be playing. And I would always say, you are welcome to walk around with me. Now, my eyes will not be on you as we're talking, because my job is to make sure that everybody is safe out here. But you are welcome to stay with me as long as you would like to, because I realized that looking back that I had never had that experience. And I felt bad for the child who just didn't have a friend that day to play with. So
Well,
they stay with me.
and that's a very good memory to share for people who also probably are in similar situations. They can relate. Tell us about your meeting Greg. How did that happen? Your husband now.
Okay.
How did that happen?
Well, I went to Berkeley and I was in Alpha Chi Omega sorority. My sister got in a different sorority. We finally went our separate ways. But anyway, there was a boy who lived across the street from us growing up, and he was in the Navy ROTC. And he was a year older, and he told us that there was a program, a little sister program called the Aguilettes. And we would just do that they had little programs going or something, we would assist or whatever. And Greg was in the Navy ROTC, so that's how I met him.
And then you get married. How long did you date before you got married?
4 years.
How was it? How was it dating Greg?
Fine. Oh, Greg. Well, Greg. Chris is laughing. It was fine. Greg is a very much a leader type. He's let's see, how do I describe it? It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of friends, and we had a great time. Now, he was ahead of me in school. We're the same age, but he skipped a grade. And so he graduated a year before me from college, and he went on to he went into the regular Navy. And then I stayed and finished my year.
And when did you decide that this was the person for you? How did that happen? Tell us about the proposal.
I believe that we always just talked about the fact that we were going to get married. And he gave me an engagement ring. And in the sorority house, if someone got engaged at dinner, they would light this candle and they'd pass it around all the tables at dinner, and then the person who got engaged, you blew out the candle.
Oh, that's so romantic.
Yeah, but that was just with the girls at the table, and then I remember that night Greg and I went out and did something. Yeah.
And then you get married. Where do you get married?
We got married in Mountain View at the base, at the church that's on the base in Mountain View.
And where do you go from there? How does life take a turn from that point?
Okay. I was working at that time. I had wanted to get a teaching credential, but when I graduated from college in 1970, there were no teaching jobs. So I thought, well, I've got to do something else. So I decided to go into retail, and I worked for the Emporium, and I was in management with them, and I managed this China and silverware department and children's department. So Greg was gone, and so and then he came back, we got married. Then he continued on finishing up his tour in the Pacific, and then he came back here, and then we first moved to Bremerton, Washington. And
how was life there? How was it different from what you have experienced here in California?
The weather.
What was it about the weather?
A lot
Did
of
you
rain.
like it?
A lot of rain.
But did you enjoy the rain?
Yeah, but I got tired of it after a while. But we had a really nice apartment that sat right on Puget Sound.
How long were you there? How many years?
Well, it wasn't years, it was months. It was probably maybe 4 or 5 months that we were there. And then the ship was decommissioned, and then he went on a DLG in Newport, Rhode Island. But before we got on that ship, we were in Maine a little bit, we were in Norfolk, Virginia, and then we went to Newport. And we were in Newport for 3 years.
And how was life there? How would you say, were you feeling happy? Were you feeling anxious?
Well, it was fun because there was so much history back there, and the closest mall was in Massachusetts. So I'd go into Massachusetts to shop, and we met a lot of nice friends, like couples. In Bremerton, not so much, because the ship was being decommissioned. So I really didn't have too many friends there, but in Newport, I had a lot of friends. And
What-
the wives.
Have you gone back and visited
We
any
have.
of these places? It's still the same?
Yeah, we went back one time. In fact, Krista was with us. Well, Krista's been to Bremerton. We took the ferry from Seattle, and Bremerton's kind of a small little town. And so she said, I hope we don't miss the ferry going back. Remember, Krista? And
I
then,
do remember, because we were living in Seattle at the time, so I was just kind of like,
right,
I was gonna get stuck on Bremerton.
yeah.
Bremerton, I wanted to get home.
I liked Bremerton. It was a nice little town. And then in Newport was different because I was alone a lot.
Oh.
The ship would go out for 6, 7, 8, 9 months at a time. And I was alone. And
Friends?
so,
Any friends around?
yes, I had friends. Some of the wives went home to be with their parents. I stayed. Yeah, it could be lonely at times. So, and I couldn't I've got a college degree and I couldn't get a job because they wouldn't hire Navy wives because they told me, because I went, applied for jobs, that they told me that they hire you and then you come back the next week. Oh gosh, you know what? My husband just got, his ship is going to Jacksonville, Florida. We're leaving. So I became a server at a restaurant. And that was a very good experience because it's to this day made me have a great appreciation for that job. When people are, oh, I want this and I don't, leave the cheese off or add extra mayonnaise or whatever, Yeah, I mean, it really opened my eyes. I was glad I did it. And I made some friends there, which was nice. And it was Howard Johnson's. It was actually attached to a hotel. So it was really busy. We were busy all the time.
So you must be a great multitasker because you would have to multitask to be successful in an environment like this.
Yeah.
What was the one thing you would say in all of this, when you look back at it, anything that stands out that you feel defined your life at that point? Any changing moment, turning points, changing thoughts? Were you in touch with your sister at that time?
I think, well, when we came back, when Greg got out of the Navy, he put his 4 years in as an officer, I think what defined me is that I want to move back and be near family. That was the one thing. I'm, been away. They all, they came and visited and all of that, but I want to be back home with family.
So when you came back, you settled down in Mountain View?
Well, first we went to Cupertino.
Okay.
And we lived there. And I went back with the Emporium at the Mountain View store. And then Greg was finishing up getting Greg was working on his master's in engineering. And then we moved to Mountain View because he got a job in San Francisco and he could take the train up. There's a station in Mountain View, take the train along the peninsula. So we moved there. And then when I got pregnant with Krista, well, we were in an apartment. We knew we couldn't stay in an apartment. And so Greg's mother at that time, she was an instructor at Ohlone Junior College for many, many years. And she said, move to Fremont because it's the beginning of the BART line and Greg can get a seat in the morning. So we moved to Fremont.
Now I am going to ask you this question because I am dying to find out. Have you gone back to Cupertino, Mountain View, and Fremont? Those cities have changed drastically now. Would you be able to identify the neighborhood where you lived, and have you even tried?
Not much. Did recently because I have a high school friend who lives in Cupertino, and But to get to his house, my sister and I went, you know, we definitely needed directions. And then he drove us around Cupertino, and it has changed so much. Yeah, I can find Greg's mom and dad's house. Greg's mom and dad lived in Santa Clara, and they had been in LA and moved up. And I can find their house if I go there, but not on the Emporium, but it's changed. Oh, yeah.
So one of the things, and we're going to get to the next phase of your life where your daughter is born, but one of the key things in relationships, when you get married, you're marrying into the extended family, which means in-laws, and your in-laws were right there. How was your relation, and how often did you see each other?
A lot. Yeah. My mother-in-law is going to be 92. She is still living. My father-in-law passed away a number of years ago. Well, we spent a lot of time with them. Yes. In fact, there was a year, or about a year, that I lived with them. When Greg was over in the Pacific, this was before he and I got married. His brother, Jeff, was in Vietnam. Both boys were gone. And then he had a younger sister. She was still at home. And so I was working for the Emporium in San Francisco, and they said, we want to transfer you to the Santa Clara store. And can you be down there in a week or so? And I was like, oh my gosh, in a week, you know. I was at that time back living in Oakland, my mom and dad's. I said, okay, I can. So I called Greg's mom, who I knew real well. She and I are really close. And I said, would you mind if I came and stayed with you guys till I can find an apartment? No. And then I ended up staying there the whole year because imagine having two sons, both, you know, in the service. Greg's brother was a door gunner on a helicopter, and very dangerous job. In fact, we did get a phone call. Oh no, we had somebody come to the door one night. We're eating dinner. He had been.
It was the Western Union guy, I believe, showed up at the door.
Yeah, that his brother had been shot. He's fine. Jeff is fine. He's an attorney in San Mateo. But anyway, she just loved having me there because she said I was just a distraction and for her. So I stayed there the whole year. And then that's when Greg and I moved up to Bremerton after that.
And then when was Costa born, and how was that phase of your life? Tell us the whole thing with her being born and how your life changed.
Well, we had been wanting to have a baby for a while, and I had a number of miscarriages. And so, but Costa held on, and was not only did she hold on for the entire 9 months, but she was born on my due date, which is very unusual. Yes. So
that also reveals her discipline, maybe, that I'm supposed to be born, so come what may, I am here and receive me.
Exactly. So she was born in December, and oh, well, of course, we were all thrilled, and loved. She was loved by all of her grandparents and the extended family, all the aunts and uncles, and she was loved.
So Costa, I'm going to have to have you join in, Joyce, in this part too. Whatever your recollections are of your childhood with your mom and the extended family, can you enlighten us and take us back to that time?
Sure. We were in Fremont when I was born, Mountain View or Fremont, but I grew up in Fremont. And we were around family all the time, which was fun. My mom's family, I love both family, but my mom's, my mom's mom, who I called Nana, she was my bestie, my best friend, and she and her siblings were just crazy. They were just so crazy in like a fun way. They were just characters. And so I grew up around a lot of a family who actually, you know, really enjoyed being together, which sometimes, you know, family is forced, but these guys all really loved being each other, and you could sense it. So it was really, it kind of set a high expectation on what family's supposed to be for me. But yeah, they were
So
fun.
where was your schooling? What, your first day of kindergarten, and did you also run out behind your mom crying?
I was in Fremont at Parkmont. That was where I started kindergarten. I do not remember. I know when I went to preschool at Ohlone College where my grandma was teaching. My mom spoke about that earlier. And so I think I was very attached to my mom. And so I think I was nervous, and mom told me, oh, well, grandma's here, you know, and then that made me feel okay. And then there was like a year before kindergarten that I had to go to another preschool. And I do remember that one being very upset on the first day of school. I don't know if I feel like I tried to leave, or I went to the window, or it was one of those situations, but I was upset. But then by kindergarten, I think I was over it. I think I was.
So
I was
it runs in the family. So I'm going to ask Danny, you married into a family that the first day of kindergarten is not, or the first week is not the most pleasant one. Do you recall your childhood, and was yours the same? And where did you grow up?
So I grew up just outside of Sacramento. I grew up in Citrus Heights. Yeah, I mean, I was definitely a mom's boy for sure. So going to school was pretty rough for me. I apparently screamed for, you know, an hour, wouldn't let my mom go. She went out to the car. She told me she went out to the car afterwards and just cried for like a half hour because it was so awful.
Didn't you go running and like throw yourself at the door?
I
think
threw
that
myself
happened.
at the door. Yeah, it was bad.
So it's a family trend. Is that how you selected your partners? Like everybody has to have this common thread that we all cry, and then that's a perfect partner, looks like.
I mean, I don't think so.
Well, I think the irony is that Enzo hasn't started preschool yet, but he did. In kindergarten, but he did start preschool, and it was a co-op. So I actually was working the first day by chance, and so that was definitely more for me because I was assigned to like an area there was like free play, so they could go. The entire preschool was an old house, so like the entire house, the entire yard was all go. You guys could go anywhere you wanted, but the teachers or the parents were assigned to a certain area, obviously. So there was an adult there if the kids were in there. And we got there, and I went to my area, and I turned around, and he was gone. I didn't see him all day. All the other kids were like playing with their parents. Not my kid. He'd go like, there'd be a flash behind me, and I'd be like, Enzo, yeah.
So very different from the three of you that I'm talking to.
Yeah.
Before I go back to Joyce and your move to San Ramon, Danny, where you said Citrus Heights, were you there for your entire schooling, and where was your schooling in college?
Yeah, so I was in Citrus Heights until 6th grade. I ended sixth grade there, and then we moved when I was in 6th grade to Granite Bay. And so then I went to high school at Granite Bay High School. So I was there for 4 years, 6 years, because I went to junior high there as well. And then
It's okay if you went to high school for 6 years. I'd still love you.
Probably did.
Sorry.
You heard it from her. She just admitted that.
This is just, it's another day. So then I came down here for college. I went to St. Mary's in Moraga. So I did 4 years there, and then I just never left. I liked it too much here. I didn't really want to go back. And then I ended up going to grad school. I met Krista, and then we were kind of deciding where I was going to go to grad school, and I ended up getting into UCSF. And so we moved to the city and just been around that area ever since. So
tell us about your major. We have to go back to Joyce because they moved to San Ramon and they had a little bit more journey ahead of them before Krista met you. What was your major in? It's played a major role in your life, whatever you studied. So tell us a little bit about that.
This is my major. Well, I went into college as an English major. I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do, but I thought I wanted to teach. I had some great teachers growing up, so I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And then after writing too many essays on hummingbirds that I wasn't that interested in, I decided I wanted to change. So I flipped through the book and looked at all these different classes that I could take. And I had to drop a computer science class that I had signed up for that the first day I walked in and didn't understand a word that the teacher said the entire time, and was like, okay, I think I need to drop this class. So I had to find something and landed on this kinesiology major that I had never heard of before. I played sports. I played volleyball at St. Mary's. I played soccer and volleyball and baseball growing up. So I was always an athlete, and it was kind of this physical education, or the science of physical education. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And so I took it and ended up loving it. And after taking a couple classes, I called my mom sophomore year and I said, I'm switching my major from English to kinesiology. And I think she almost strangled me through the phone, but it turned out to be a good major. I started looking into what I could do and kind of shadowing some professions, and thought I wanted to go into orthopedic surgery for a while, but had some trouble with chemistry, and talked to an orthopedic surgeon who was in residency in his 30s, and was trying to juggle family time and being in the hospital all the time, and was miserable. And so landed on physical therapy. So that's how I ended up there.
Isn't it interesting how you found your way? What were your parents' dreams for you? I mean, why was your mom going to strangle you through the phone?
I think my parents didn't really know what kinesiology was, to be honest, just like me.
The fear of the unknown, you would say? It was just
yeah. I think, my parents were very supportive of me growing up. They were very supportive of my successes. They pushed me. They told my parents told me from an early age, we want you to do whatever you want to do. Just work hard and be successful at it. And so I think they were a little nervous about what that was going to look like. I don't think they really understood what it was. English seemed like this major that was kind of broad and could go a lot of different places. And so I think it was just the fear of the unknown more than anything, and change.
So before I go to Joyce, I have to ask you, have you read Hummingbird or written anything about it after you finished everything?
The extent of my hummingbird experiences since college is watching the hummingbirds in the backyard. That's about it. I'm over it beyond that. So
that's close enough. That's a good starting point and an end place. So Joyce, let's talk about your move to San Ramon. Why San Ramon? What was it about San Ramon that attracted you?
Well, I knew that I wanted to get a little closer to family. My parents were in Oakland. My sister was in Moraga. So Greg and Krista was going to be going into second grade. And so Greg and I and Krista just kind of started up 680. And believe it or not, in those days, 680, there were hardly any cars on the freeway. It was very quiet. And we came up and we looked around and we found a house we liked, this house. And we thought the area looked nice. We didn't really know anyone here, but we thought it was a nice area, and it was close for Greg to go to San Francisco. And so we bought a house here in 1986, and we're still in the same house.
Commute to San Francisco is not the easiest these days. How long did it take Greg in those times?
Boy, you know what? It's been so long ago. I don't even remember, but I don't know, maybe an hour or so. I mean, I think sometimes he took BART, sometimes he drove. Yeah, either way. And
Danny,
then Greg also done a lot of traveling, a lot of international traveling and stuff.
Okay. Danny, would you know how long it took for you? I mean, I know you moved to San Ramon at some point, and why San Ramon for you?
Well, so I first moved to San Ramon when I was in college. We were looking for apartments, and San Ramon seemed like a nice place. It was still within driving distance of Moraga. The apartments were a little cheaper than Walnut Creek, and it seemed like a safe place. So we ended up moving out here for that more than anything. And then I worked out here between college and grad school. I worked here in Walnut Creek, and so it was just an easy place to be. And then we ended up back here because of the schools and because Joyce and Greg were here. So, we knew we had family nearby and we just liked the area. So, it was a natural fit, especially because of the schools for us with Enzo. But I initially landed on San Ramon just because it was kind of near St. Mary's and within driving distance.
Okay, and Joyce, when you moved to San Ramon, there was something that got you and Greg and the whole family essentially got involved in a conversation that was happening around Norris Canyon.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, there was talk, we're on the corner of Norris Canyon and Cherbear, and there was talk of widening the road, and which we didn't want to happen, and to tear houses down, etc. And this is a lot of kids walk to school back and forth and whatever. And so we started attending council meetings, and that kind of got us started with knowing what was going on as far as the council and what was going on. And from there, I remember the cars driving very fast down the road. And I remember going and speaking about that, and they ended up putting a stop sign at Twin Creek Drive in Norris Canyon. And then we met Jim Blickenstaff, who was involved in Save Our Hills. And then we got very involved in that and the initiative drive and everything. And one thing has just led to another, and we've just stayed, since the end of the 80s, we've just stayed in politics, always, doing something, keeping up on what's going on in the city and wanting the best for our city.
And when you say we, your whole family, I mean, Krista was involved in the Save Our Hills campaign as well. So, Krista, can you talk a little bit about your role in the Save Our Hills campaign? And for viewers who don't know what it is, let's hear from you, how you got interested and why you got involved.
Me, about Save Our Hills? Well, I was kind of, it was kind of like forced labor being the child. I didn't really have a choice at the beginning.
You're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say, I just got it.
I never say what I'm supposed to say. Never you figured that out. I'm too honest. No. I was, how old was I?
12?
I don't even know, maybe 11.
11 or 12?
Yeah, I was pretty young. So kind of started out with their interest. I remember, obviously, we had moved. I didn't want to move here because my life was in Fremont. My friend, as a kid, my life was there. And we moved here, and I think I had just kind of started feeling at home here. And then all of a sudden, mom and dad are talking about how they're going to come tear the house down. So that, as a kid, that's kind of scary. And, it doesn't feel good. But then they started to, our whole family, so, well, especially my dad's family, I would say is very environmentally aware, focused, has always been that way. And I have kind of just, either by genetics or, being around them, or both, I just kind of always have been that way as well. And so when they started talking about the hillsides and, habitat destruction, all that stuff, that really got me upset, because even as a kid, I'm pretty passionate person. And so that got me very upset. And so then, I don't know, just started, I know there's a lot of walking the city for in the 80s or late 80s, early 90s, I guess it was, for petition signatures. So I've walked the majority of the city.
And around this time, did you have a visitor, an exchange student in your house? Was it around the Save Our Hills time? And can you tell us a little bit more? You and Joyce can probably fill in.
It was during a little bit after that. I think she came in 93.
No, well, first time, so she came, I was in, it was my sixth grade class. My sixth grade teacher, he, signed up to participate in this exchange student program. And I remember he brought there was like a little, passport picture and like a questionnaire about them, and he brought them out. There were 5 of them, and we all went and looked. He's trying to get, us, like bringing puppies to school, someone, need to get rid of the puppies, so someone will, here, I'll show how cute they are, and you'll go home and ask your parents, and then you'll get to take one home. So that's what I did. And she, her name's Patricia, and she actually came with her sister. And so a friend of mine, we got the sisters, and that was in 1991. And so
where did she come from? Which country?
In Spain. Oh, sorry. Yeah, she's from Spain, and kind of northeastern part of Spain, just south of Basque country, in west of Barcelona. But yeah, they came and first time she came was in 1991. And so we got to, kind of show her around, and I thought she was very brave because I was not, she was a year older and she's 6 months older. No. Yeah. 9 months older than me. So not much older than me. And here she was, all these kids. She did have her sister, down the road, but still they were kind of independent. And yeah, it was fun. We got to show her around, and language was an issue. I remember that as a kid, that was frustrating for me because I didn't know any Spanish. And
so how was the environment for even an exchange student coming from another country, and you are here very involved in the community? How was the experience? Did she talk about any of this in her country, how it was done, involvement with the government, or just getting involved in community affairs? Was there ever any discussion with her on those things? Nothing. It was just
I have
fun.
no recollection, though I'm sure if there was work to be done, we probably put her to work too. But no, I don't know. She came during the summer, 1991, and then Mom was right. She came back just in 1993. She came again, independent of the program, just because we had stayed in touch, and she's still like my sister,
And you visited her and been a part of her life as well.
She's lived kind of all around the world. I've seen her. She lived in New York for a while, New York City. So I went back there a few times and spent time with her. And then I've been to Spain twice, like for her wedding, for her sister's wedding. Seen her then. We FaceTime a lot, now, and she has 3 daughters. So. Yeah,
and Danny, have you met this lady?
Patricia? Yeah. She came to our wedding. She was in our wedding. So I've met her maybe twice, maybe once. I can't remember.
At the wedding, for sure.
Definitely at the wedding.
Well, we're going to talk about your wedding and how you guys met, but we have to first talk about Joyce and her career. One of the most important jobs in the world after mom is a teacher. And that's the noblest profession in my eyes, because we are developing young minds. Tell us why you went that route, and why were those specific grades picked? Why did you choose to work with the 3rd grade and the 5th grade students?
Well, I was assigned those the principal, they assign you the grades that you teach, but
you enjoyed that. You did not have any complaints.
I would have done any of the elementary grades. What I did was Krista, I think, was about a 3rd grader or something. It was like 1989. And, I said to Greg one day, I still have that dream of being a teacher. And so he said, well, you know what? He said, I've got an idea. He said, why don't you substitute and see if that really is what you want to do? And I thought, oh, that's a great idea. And I could do it, with the hours that I would be substituting would be when Krista was in school. And so I did. So I substituted and I loved it. And I had these same teachers that would have me come back to their classroom. So I got to know a lot of the kids. When I came, the kids would, would know me already. And I even substituted in Krista's class a couple of times. Which is a very interesting thing, because you would think that, a child would go, oh, my mom's here today. This is great. I know I probably didn't say a word to her, and she didn't say a word to me the whole day. She just did her work, and that was that. So anyway, I substituted, and I realized this is what I wanted to do. So I went to Cal State East Bay and got my credential. And when it was time for me to look for a job, that wasn't hard to do. A teacher at Montevideo that I had done a lot of subbing for, Craig Blackburn, when he knew I had gotten my credential, he said, you're coming to Bollinger. And he had just started as principal at Bollinger. So he said, you're coming to my school. So it was great. It was great. And because I knew him, and he put me in a 5th grade class. And I remember one day, one of the teachers in the lunchroom saying to me, you know, there's one thing I notice about you. This is your first year of teaching, and you just seem to be relaxed and calm and whatever. And I said, you know what it was? I said, it was the 4 or 5 years of substituting, because you get great ideas. You know, you get things that think, wow, that really works. Then there were times there were things I thought, I don't think that works very well. And all that experience really helped me. So I was in 5th grade for 4 years. And then for 17 years, I was in 3rd grade. And I loved both grades. I would have done any of the other ones in between, but each year, the teachers, you always know each year you can be moved around. It depends on numbers, it depends on a lot of things, and you can be moved around, but I was only moved once, and I went to 3rd grade, and I loved every minute of it. And I told the teachers at my party, I said, and this is true, Greg would tell you, there was never a day I got up and said, oh, I don't want to go to school. I was always enthused. There was a new lesson or knew something that I wanted to show them or teach them or whatever, and I loved it.
So how was it then when you finally retired? How was that feeling? Tell us about that day.
Well, in January of 2017, I woke up, people would ask me, because I was getting toward the age of 70. So people would ask me, you know, because when I was at Bollinger, there was one other teacher that had been there longer than me, but besides that, I've been there the longest, and age-wise, I was older than everybody from the city, the office staff, to everybody. I was the oldest one. So people were always asking me, when are you going to retire? When are you going to retire? And I'd say, you know, when it'll just hit me one day, but it hasn't hit me yet. But it did. It hit me in January of 2017. I said to Greg, you know, I'm almost 70, and these teachers, I mean, they are on the computers, and they're doing all this stuff, and they know all these programs. And I mean, I did it too, but it was hard. It was really hard. And so I thought, you know, maybe it is time for me to retire. I've been teaching all these years, and I want to have more time with Enzo and Krista and Danny. And I think, you know,
it was a good decision, you feel like that.
You know, I had been in 2005, I had been diagnosed with 2 cerebral brain aneurysms. And thanks to Krista, I had had headaches for years. My father had headaches. My dad had died in 1993 of one. When he died in 1993, I remember going to my doctor and saying, is there anything you could do to check? And there was, you know, there were no MRIs or anything in those days. There was no way they could check on me. But anyway, Krista and I actually were back in New York City. And I said one day, I have a headache. And she said, Mom, you have to promise me when we go home that you're going to go to the doctor and see about this. And I had 2 aneurysms. And I have a wonderful doctor at UCSF. I have had them repaired. My one doctor almost didn't want me to go back to teaching because of the stress of the job. But he said, you know what? I can tell you love teaching so much. I'm going to send you back. I'll worry about you. So that was another thing. I thought, you know, I've been lucky with these aneurysms. I haven't had any problem with them. And so I decided I was going to. So I let my principal know that I thought that I would be retiring at the end of the year. And Greg and I went to meetings to see about how retirement works and all of that. And it was hard signing that paper, signing off, but I did. And I was glad I did. But I missed working with kids, so I started tutoring. And I tutored 3 days a week, and I loved that.